Hang on 1 second, sir. Who actually put this on the agenda?
I did, Mr. Chairman.
I remember you speaking to me last week as far as the appointments for that bonding issue. That was the only hint. Would you like to go into a little detail with this?
Yes, as you voted several months ago to go ahead and move forward with this building. Part of that is the bonding of additional dollars that are necessary to do that. The most effective and efficient way to do that and save the taxpayers dollars is to use non-taxable bonds. One method, the preferred method, or the simplest method to do that, is to use the urban redevelopment area and the urban redevelopment agency to do so. Unfortunately, due to state law, to do that, you must declare it an area that is in need of assistance, an area that is potential for growth, an area that has some areas that need to be fixed up. The terminology they used in the 50s when they did the legislation was the word slum. I'm not too sure that that's appropriate these days, but that's the verbiage that was used to be able to qualify for these dollars. It's amazing the number of slums that have popped up around Georgia over the past several years. The Bank of America Plaza in downtown Atlanta is a slum, according to that definition, because that's the funding methodology that they use to fund that. And they too received a lot of criticism for using that word. The area at the intersection of Washington Road and Bobby Jones in our neighboring Columbia County is basically a slum, because that's how they're funding projects there. As is the area across the river close to Hammond's Ferry. It's a blighted area, and that's what they use to do the development and the process that we're doing there. While it's unfortunate that that word needs to be used, and while that word has a lot of connotation that I nor most of the people that have worked hard for the last years to make Augusta a better place like, it is a mechanism to fund that. It's a mechanism that over the life of the loan will save us several millions of dollars. The tax-free versus the taxable bonds, and that's what we've used in Lanny Walker, that's what we've used in several other things. I would prefer to use the words opportunity zone, redevelopment area, all kinds of great verbiage you could use that tidy up the neighborhood, that make it better and whatever. But unfortunately, the verbiage required by the statute is the word slum. We did that. We were cognizant of the fact that it would probably raise some attention, and somewhat rewarded by the fact that so many people have taken offense at that, because it's pretty cool that they have enough pride to say, oh my God, we don't like that. And several years ago, I'm not too sure that would have happened in downtown Augusta. So we look at this as an opportunity to celebrate, continue moving forward, to fund this in a way that's cost effective for the taxpayers, and make sure that we can do this project and other potential projects that will increase our tax base, increase the number of jobs, and hopefully make Augusta a better place to raise our kids, no matter what we call it.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right, as far as this, wow. I was looking for a battery charger somewhere on it. The longer you talk, the more you had energy.
Well, ad nauseum, I believe, is the words that somebody's used before about my conversation.
All right, as far as the opportunities zone, the tax zone, whatever we want to call it, tax, this proposed Augusta downtown development, redevelopment, what makes this different from the opportunity zone or enterprise zone or TAD zone? Do we have anybody to clarify that?
Jim can talk about that at some point.
Oh, him.
Okay.
Why don't you state your name and your address for the record, sir?
My name is Jim Plunkett, 429 Walker Street, Augusta, Georgia. Basically, you've got a couple different things that are going on. This area is for designation of an urban redevelopment area. It is also the same area for a tax allocation district. We're going to be bringing papers for the tax allocation district separately because we thought it might confuse even more so if we did both of them overlap. The idea is that tax allocation district are basically for private development ideas where tax increment is used to pay for redevelopment costs. The urban redevelopment area allows both for government type buildings, this building here, or other projects that may use some type of government backing. So it's just kind of more opportunities. The idea generally was to set the parameters of the geography the same so that if there was a project in downtown Augusta that's being defined roughly from Chafee Avenue to Gordon Highway, the river to Walton Way, if someone came up with a project, you would have a couple of different things to look at. Maybe it was a TAD, maybe it was a URA kind of deal. The other thing is that by setting the territory that large, we didn't have to come back and amend it and redefine the urban redevelopment area and go back through this unfortunate, I prefer area of needed redevelopment as opposed to a slum, but that way you get it over and done one time. And it's just a terminology. It's something that everyone sort of has to just accept. That's the necessary way to go ahead and fund projects this way.
Yeah, matter of fact, I believe that word was used one time in our attachments. It shows.
But we try to use it as least as possible, just because people draw the wrong conclusion. Because again, if you look at the definition, it is the buildings that are potentially going to deteriorate as well as could be deteriorated. And so, and the definition of the slum is very loose, but it's in the eye of the beholder of this commission.
And come up with not the word slum, naturally.
Well, unfortunately, pretty much under this law, you would be doing that back again.
In order to do an opportunity zone, enterprise zone, or TAD, you got to go through the due process in having neighborhood meetings to get their approval before we could even approve it on this floor. Is that correct?
Yes, but in this situation, you don't have a hearing for the area. The body would go ahead and determine the area. Then there's a hearing on the redevelopment plan. And that's what this has saying is also have the hearing. There's a document that was attached that was the redevelopment plan, and that is to hear public input.
Okay.
So you designate the area, then have a plan for redeveloping it, and this is very project specific to this building here. And if you came up with another idea, then what you would do is simply amend that plan to incorporate it. We wouldn't go back through any more designations.
Yeah, but underneath this plan here, you have there's property rights in effect where people could actually be the property be condemned by the county, and if it was for development, what could be done?
The condemnation powers are not granted to the URA. It would be subject to this commission acting. So the urban redevelopment agency would not have the power to condemn. That was specifically precluded when this was adopted several years ago.
Okay. I got Mr. Smith, then Mr. Williams, then Mr. Lockett. Mason and Fennoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion for a division of the question. I think that this resolution is in three parts, and it should be divided into three different motions. A motion to approve the appointees of the board, a motion to approve the purpose of the downtown redevelopment, and a motion to approve the issuance of the bonds. And I believe that those, rather than using one motion to cover all three of those, I think that ought to be dealt with on an individual basis.
I'll second that one. We could continue moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get that nod from you. Okay. But when we voted to do the work in this building, and they came forward with the bond and talked about our ratings and how good things was, and how great the grand scheme of things. And I understand the plan to try to get some additional money. But I had no idea that we had to go back and do anything like this to help with this particular building. Because, Jim, I was under the impression that, you know, we had great ratings, and, you know, all we had to do was just put it together and we had a bond package. Then when I hear about this, naturally the word slum draws some negative comments, and people, you know, kind of lose it. But if we use that, and it's not a slum area, building is not as such as some of the other buildings, are we within the guidelines of the law? I'm talking to a lawyer.
I understand, and we're going to answer this two questions. The first off is that the bond rating of Augusta is very important in this transaction. The URA is not the credit that a purchaser of the bonds will be looking for. It's through the intergovernmental agreement between the issuer, that is the URA, and Augusta to fund the construction with the renovations to this. So Augusta's credit rating is very, very important to this, and that's how we get the good rating that we do. As to the other part, it is the discretion of this board what a slum is. And if you determine that Augusta has a significant number of buildings that are at risk of being deteriorating, which could impact the growth of this city, then you can say this is a slum, and it is a slum. I have talked to one bond attorney who's done a number of transactions several months, probably 2 years ago. We're just talking about it. And he was in lunch in town for me. We're talking about the URA laws. And he goes, well, certainly there's an overgrown lot, and I see some graffiti.
Mr. Plunkett, I don't mean to interrupt you. Parliamentary procedure, after that motion was made and second, we would actually have a...
I'll ask the question.
No, it's just in order to break it up. So it's not to extinguish the item. Andrew, would you please clarify for us as a body?
Because there was a motion made to divide the item that was on the agenda, the discussion is limited to whether or not it should divide until that motion has been voted on. Is that what goes to the underlying?
And nothing happened yet. Now y'all, cool. We made a motion. And I think it was second, but no vote took place, so we hadn't done that yet.
And that's what I wanted to clarify. Until you vote on that, then the discussion should be limited according to the
just
rules,
break it in.
whether or not to break it up. You can still vote. You can still discuss the substantive matter, but it would need to be after you made a vote on whether or not to divide the motion.
I need a point of privilege or something to speak to what
Go ahead, Mr.
Mayor said. It's difficult for me to cast a vote even on that motion because I have some questions in relation to that. So I'm not sure how I can adequately vote on whether I want to split it up when the questions that I have haven't been answered. So to me, I'm needing a little bit more discussion. I'm hearing you saying that can't be, but that's a torn piece right there for me anyway, because I got some more questions in relation to the breakup of that motion.
Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I was to try to satisfy my colleagues, Mr. Williams and Mr. Mason, I could withdraw that motion, which would allow them at that point to carry on with the conversation and then make the motion again. Would that satisfy this committee?
That way we can proceed.
Yes, sir. I will withdraw my motion pending Mr. Williams and Mr. Mason's comments. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can the lawyer clarify? Because if the motion was made and wasn't voted on, it's still just a motion, it's just out there. And, you know, you can withdraw it, but you really, don't need no withdrawal yet. I ain't got no problem with that. But I just want to know for the future representative, what should I do? If it was voted on, we might not be able to do it. Mr. Mayor? Must tell you somebody to tell me something. Put me in the middle of it. But Andrew, in future reference, what do we do now? The motion was made, but it wasn't voted on. So, do we have to withdraw that motion?
I'll read the rule quickly for you. I think that will clarify this. This is only where a motion is made to divide an agenda item, which is very rare. These aren't made every day. And the rule is 3.01.02, and it says this motion shall require a second, and discussion shall be allowed only on why it should or should not be divided. So that's the only limitation. If you make a motion to divide, limit the discussion on whether you should divide it or not divide it. In this instance, we don't even need to go through the analysis because the maker of the motion has to withdraw the motion.
Okay. Mr. Williams and Mr. Plunkett, would you mind proceeding?
The question we got to answer that. We're just going to the
The
second.
question is that the answer, I think, is in the discretion of this board, that as long as it's not frivolously made, that if you determine that this area is bounded, is defined as a slum within the definition of the statute, that you're within your rights, and there's no problem with moving forward under those terms.
So we can make it fit, sort of, depends on how we word it or what we consider.
If the divide it or not, if this board acted to approve that resolution, you would have made a finding that this meets the definition of a slum under the statute.
All right, finish, Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
All right, we got Mr. Lockett, then Mason, and then the board.
I'll be real brief. This is either for Mr. Plunkett or the administrator or both. We spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to rebrand downtown Augusta, Lane Walker, Bethlehem. Then this comes out and it's in multiple newspapers and so forth. Everybody's talking about Augusta, some 500 plus acres is a slum area. Now, Mr. Plunkett, according to the print media, you have been tasked with this for some time. How long have you been working on this?
Probably since y'all approved moving forward with the renovations to this building. We've had numerous conversations during that time. Were there ways to do this other than through the urban redevelopment laws?
Okay, my next question is for the administrator. Mr. Russell, why is it that I want the people to vote on this thing one way or the other, that I had to find out from print media that this was in the works?
Well, they got it at the same time you got your agenda item. As you know, we've been working on trying to make this happen. For them to find the one-word slum out of the document and make such a big deal of it, I was a little shocked. Not shocked. I wasn't shocked. I felt the same as I said a few minutes ago, that, you know, it's a shame.
Wasn't what the print media submitted, was that word for word what's on the resolution?
Say again, sir, I'm sorry.
What the print media had and what started all the conversation, wasn't that word for word what was in the resolution?
Yes, and required by the law.
So the media did not come up with the word slum. It was in the resolution, is that correct?
It's in the 1950 legislation that requires that, yes, sir.
Yeah. But you know, it seemed to me to be counterproductive for us to pursue this, because the mindset of everybody, to include this commissioner, is 500 plus acres downtown is a slum area. When we discussed providing the funds to remodel the municipal building, I was a strong supporter of it. However, we were not told or given any indication that the monies, or part of the monies, may come from this particular designations. And I think it is hurtful, and I think that really is, this is something that we should have probably talked about early on in a work session or something. So when this came out, all of us could be ready to go out and talk to our constituents and say, oh, no, we're not saying Augusta is a slum area. We're not saying downtown Augusta. But by virtue of what I had, wasn't too much I could do. I had to tell the reporter, look, I just got my packet, I haven't read it. Once I read it, I get back with you. But I don't like that, and I just hope that something like this will not happen again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What's your name again? Oh, we can you by now, by the way? No, I'm just kidding. I'm really not so much worried about what's in the name. I am concerned about the devil in the details. That's important to me. I've come from the ghetto, the slum, and all that, and it doesn't make me a bad person. What I will say is this. We should always look for options that is best for this community in terms of financing. When this project was brought forward and we talked about utilizing the spots and that was an option that we had that was available. In my mind, that's how I'm looking at it. That was an option that was available. It relied upon certain criteria to happen, potentially, like a spot 7 and so forth. And if that didn't happen, we would have to go to something else. So we had a couple different options there. What this seems to me is it brings in another option, a way of financing and getting it done. In addition to what Mr. Williams was talking about, does this qualify? The very reason why we were doing this building was because it was in horrible shape. And what I think is happening here is I think we're all getting caught up in our own definitions and perceptions of what we call a slum. I'm only focused on the definition that the government says that fits this particular entity. You didn't make it up, I didn't make it up. It is what it is. And so if it gives us a viable method of financing to get things done, and it also gives us further options, then I'm all for looking into those options, and I'm not getting caught up in the word slum, and I'm not putting my own definition on it. I really could care less what the media or anybody else says in reference to that. I would just, what I would do is I would send them directly to the definition that has been attached not by this government, but that has been attached by the federal government.
It's a state.
For the state. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, it's not quote-unquote a slum as we all know it. We've lived in Augusta Richmond County. We know what it is and we know what it's not. What's amazing to me is, seems like up here, we're dogged if we do, we're dogged if we don't. Now, people have been talking about how bad this is and how bad that is. Now, here's a mechanism to potentially get it done, and now everybody wants to go run for cover. I'm not scared or concerned or worried about the word slum, but I am concerned about the details that are in here. And one of the details that I'm very much concerned about is the fact of, well, let me digress a moment. I heard absolutely zero from any press about Columbia County using this, not once but twice. Come on, somebody. Not once but twice.
Right.
In the areas that don't look half as worse as what we're talking about. Ain't nobody said a word. Now all of a sudden it's Augusta, and everybody wants to come down on the word and what we're doing or potentially doing. Haven't even done nothing yet, and we're getting beat down. You know, at some point this needs to stop. We're trying to find financing mechanisms and ways to create a better Augusta, period. And this is one way to get it done. Now, what I am concerned with, though, because in 2010, I believe we did this with Laney Walker. Is that right? Or something close? We created a board.
Created the board, and then we designated an urban redevelopment area, which is the Laney Walker area.
Yes.
And then we adopted a plan and started implementing that plan through the issuance of the bonds to renovate that area.
Okay, so here's my question in regards to that. I'm hoping that we're not creating dual boards. So in other words, if in fact this is adopted, this would be the same board that's overseeing that as well as this project if it was adopted.
That's correct.
So we're not creating dual boards.
No, sir. It's one agency for all of the urban redevelopment areas that you create within Richmond County.
Okay, and so on the board that's created now, we have board members that have been appointed.
That's correct.
Are their appointments still valid?
They've expired. They serve to their successors are appointed.
So all 5 have
They have
expired.
Yes, sir.
What is the procedure for putting new board members on? Because if it's 5 board members, obviously it's not 1 per commissioner. What is the procedure and the criteria for putting somebody on the board?
Residents of Richmond County, they cannot have an elected position. I would suggest they not be employees of Richmond County, of the government. Besides that, that's an interest. Previously, you had 5 members. Ms. Betty Beard, who was a former commissioner who had very active in getting that started. Mr. James Kendrick, both of those have asked or said they would be willing to serve again. Eric Montgomery, Executive Director of Historic Augusta, he has asked not to serve again because his group is involved with Heritage Trail and he didn't see a conflict of interest. Barry White, I have not heard back from him, but previously I believe he said he did not wish to serve again. Again, the original Laney Walker was for, you know, it's history-related issues there. And again, it was the tourism and the fees and things of that nature, so that's why he was selected. And the 5th member was George Patty, and at the time that was a separate, planning zone was separate at that time. And George, in light of his retirement, I suggested he had more free time to serve in this, and he thought he would prefer not to serve again. So we need reappointments. Theoretically, yes, they could do this a second time, but you know, And again, this is to your issue of the motion to separate the things. All of these are necessary to move forward. To adopt one is not going to accomplish a whole lot if you don't do it all. That's why we had a very, very long sentence in all my motions historically, but very, very long, and I apologize. But we need those names, okay, from this board.
And just for clarity, since they've all expired, we don't need reappointments, we need appointments.
That's correct.
Okay.
Either reappoint those two that wish to serve again, or I would start off saying they're all appointed.
All appointed because it's brand new.
Yes, sir.
That's been, I'm good.
All right. Mr. Fenoy?
And I guess just for the record, I just support the renovation of the municipal building, not because it didn't need it, but because I felt that the money could be best used someplace else. And I guess one of my concerns about the designation of this area as being a slum area is that if we could designate this area as a slum area, then we should be able to get monies for the abandoned houses, for the vacant lots, for the buildings that's been that was once standing here in Augusta that moved elsewhere that are still standing. Tea Summer is in this area, and it's very difficult to, I would think, to get conventions to come to this area that's been designated as a slum area. You have business owners and property owners on Broad Street that are very concerned about their businesses being designated as located in a slum area and the impact that it would have on their businesses. Last Friday, we had, they said, over 8,000 to 10,000 people at the Augusta Commons for the border bash. And I don't see University of Georgia, University of South Carolina having a border bash in a slum area. So I have a issues with the designation of their areas being a slum area, and to me, words do matter. I mean, what you call the area do matter. What you call a person matters. And Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think we have, I see a couple of business owners from Broad Street.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to hear from them about their feelings of this area being designated as a slum area, if you don't mind.
I will be happy to oblige you. It's in your district. Can we have somebody come up? Would you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Mike Walraven, 302 2nd Street. Our business is 980 Broad Street. And once again, I'm down here too deep in downtown. I'm tired of being deep down. Anyway, they're talking about this act or whatever. It's an official code of Georgia, 3661, and it's called the Urban Redevelopment Act. Okay, and it states in the act, and this is from the Georgia Community Affairs. They send this out to governments like y'all trying to get this thing passed. It's 30-something pages long, but I got the highlights of it anyway. Because of its origin and intent, using the act requires a local legislative or binding of necessity, specifying geographic areas that have been determined to meet the definition of a slum included in the act. This is the act. This is what they say a slum is. An area which, by reason of the presence of a substantial number of slum, deteriorating structures, predominance of defective or inadequate street layout. Our streets are pretty good. Y'all seen to that. Faulty lot layout in relation to size. Our buildings are pretty good. Adequacy of accessibility, usefulness, unsanitary or unsafe conditions, lack of tax or special assessment, in other words, tax or special assessment delinquency exceeding the fair value of the land, the existence of conditions which endanger life or property by fire or other causes, by having development impaired by airport or transportation noise or by other environmental hazards, the airport's a long ways from downtown, or any combination of such factors. And it also says it constitutes an economic or social liability and is a menace to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare in its present condition and use. We are not a menace downtown, I'm sorry. Okay, it also says the state legislature asserted in the act that the existence of slum areas are that contribute substantially and increasingly to the spread of disease and crime. The bubonic plague is not running wild downtown. Constitutes an economic and social liability, substantially impairs or arrests the sound growth of municipalities and counties, retards the provision of housing accommodations. We have more loft apartments opening up downtown constantly, so we're not deteriorating the housing. Promotes juvenile delinquency. I don't think there are any juveniles living downtown. Contribute little to the tax income of the state and its municipalities and counties. Because of where we are in downtown, we pay two different taxes, an urban maintenance tax and a county maintenance tax. We pay 17 mills, the rest of the county pays 10. So we are contributing more than our fair share. Okay, this is the kicker here. It tells how to get it passed. It says, handle sensitively the urban redevelopment area designation need not be a subject of extensive public debate. Community friction or negative press coverage. In other words, slip it in before they know about it. One other thing. Now you're going to open up Pandora's box here because it gives, under the law, this board authority or whatever, it gives them the authority to expand local government's powers in eminent domain, simplifies the assembly and possibly replanting of large enough tracts of land to attract private developers, allows the community to make exceptions to its development ordinances in order to achieve stated economic and aesthetic outcome in the redevelopment. That means forget about your zoning laws if you want to. And it provides a legal framework for binding intergovernmental contracts where communities elect to delegate redevelopment powers to a separate redevelopment agency. You'll be giving up a lot of your powers too. Thank you.
Mr. Walraven.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Thank you for coming down. I'm passionate, I'm sorry.
I know. And we've been criticized by the press for being passionate up here too, so I can sympathize with you. Let me just ask you a question about that. You talked about all those things that would occur if we had this board in place. And we have this board has been in place to help us with Laney Walker. And there will be a great deal of support about what has been accomplished down there. And I guess my question will be that anything the board decides to do, the final say though would rest with the 10 men and women that sit up here. Is that the way you read that?
The way I read it is you delegate a lot of those authorities to that board. If you give them the power, I'm not an attorney, Mr. Plunkett can clarify that. I'm just a layman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Plunkett, can you answer that for me, please?
It's through the intergovernmental agreement. Yes, you're delegating certain authority. Condemnation is not one of it. What you're doing is, through a governmental process, you're allowing a body to implement the plan this body approves. And it's on a project-by-project basis. So in this case, it would be a matter of getting the funding to renovate this building. If we had another project, that project would have to be vetted, would have to be approved by this board after a public hearing, and then it would implement that project. So you would have safeguards. It's to take some of that day-to-day obligation, and again, you arguably contract back. Take the Laney Walker area, Augusta contracts with Laney Walker, and then Laney Walker, the URA. The URA is implemented the plan through housing and community development. So we have control over that. And again, it's unfortunate use of the word. And I heard the comment that it's going to be labeled a slum. To To me, one of the quintessential ones is Sandy Springs, and most of y'all may know where that is, right outside Metro Atlanta, inside that. That's a slum. This is a picture of a slum right up here. Okay? It's a designation. It is an acceptance of a word for the purpose of moving forward to open up a lot of opportunities that will not only enhance, will continue to enhance downtown. So it's a momentary issue, and I can guarantee you that unless people want to keep bringing it up, no one's going to reference the DCA website and said, let's look at this. Almost should be pressed to be in this list of slums, Sandy Springs, Atmore, unincorporated DeKalb County, and things of that nature.
Mr. Walraven.
May I respond? Did y'all not designate Harrisburg as one of these areas, and what's happened with them? Somebody show me examples of all this great stuff that's going to happen.
Mr. Walraven.
Yes.
You and I are from the same small hick country town. And so whether they call it a small town or a small city, we're still from Millen. And so I'm not, the designation slum doesn't really bother me, but my question to you, because you and I have had many conversations, I respect you and your opinion. Do you have any ideas about where we would have another revenue source, another funding source to handle this particular obligation that we're already in the middle of?
Me personally, I don't mind coming up here and sweating if it's going to mean you're going to call where I have a business a slum. I'm fighting enough negative perceptions downtown. It's trashy, it's crime-ridden. Now the government's going to officially label it a slum. How are you going to pay the bonds? You're going to pay them with SPLOST money, sales tax money. If you run all the businesses downtown that are barely hanging on out, how are you going to get your sales tax money?
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thanks, sir.
All right, Administrator, well, it was a discussion. If you don't even want to talk, I've got Mr. Johnson's Mayor Pro Tem to speak.
I just wanted to point out that we're spending a lot of time arguing about a word. It's a bad word. I hate the fact that we got to use it. If you want to save a couple $1 million in the finance project, we'd like you to say, okay, that's a slum in downtown Atlanta. It's up there. There are lots of slums. Let me account.
I think some of
It's almost sophomoric that we're doing this. We've got an opportunity to move forward.
Right, Mr. Russ, I don't, the word keeps coming up, but I'm not worried. This is just a word to me. But as far as the funding, the eminent domain, this is the due process on how this redevelopment is supposed to happen. I believe that's the concern of, some of the citizens here, as well as we'll probably start getting emails tomorrow. But on this funding, what concerns me is we fixing a bond on the SPLOST number 7, and it's still got to go up for a vote before the people next year on a whim.
If I can, I'm not too sure the whim's there. We're actually at the direction of this committee who authorized us to do that. As you remember, we have other financing alternatives available if for some reason this SPLOST doesn't pass, and we're potentially saving not only with the funding about potentially $2 million, but by doing the project in one fell swoop and doing it now, we're probably saving another $3 to $4 million if we wait it. So I mean, it seems to me that the direction that we continually get over and over and over again is to use the city's taxpayers' dollars in the best way possible to accomplish the goals that you established, and I think we're doing that over and over and over again. I mean, you're talking savings in this one project through this financing mechanism, through the fact that this commission told us to go ahead and do it forward, probably $5 to $6 million over the life of the project. That will repair a lot of houses and a lot of empty lots someplace in our city and take care of a lot of other issues that we've got. Or we could wait and spend that money there, and we end up with the same project 4 years down the line, and we're $6 million, $4 million in the hole.
Thank you, Mr. Russell, Mr. Johnson, and then Mr. Fennoy. Can we make Mr. Williams last on the list so we can proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, I read the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, whatever it's called, and it talked about Union City or Union Station, I think it is, and several others, Marietta, Sandy Springs, all of which has used this opportunity. That's what they pretty much called it. Unfortunately, the state legislators wrote this
back in the 50s, and back then, that's when it was deemed things like that to be, I call it, depressed areas, they would call it slum. But again, I do concur with my colleagues that, you know, some of them who are speaking on behalf of this word will allow this word to supersede the real issue and what's, I guess, what the administrator is trying to get done here with the dollars that we receive by creating this opportunity. And I think what we got to start doing, we got to start looking at the big picture. We get caught up in what others think and say. We got to look at the big picture. And I'm going to say this, and you can be off the record. Call me a bum and give me $2 million. I don't care. Because I'm looking at the big picture here. And I think when you're looking at the big picture, then I think you can kind of get a better understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish. And this can save us money. We talked about the mayor and I, of course, we serve on GMA Board of Directors, and we talked about the Renaissance Act, which is another form of mechanism of funding or incentives, if you will, that will help bring people into our inner city and our downtown to redevelop. It's giving them the incentive that they normally wouldn't get. So you're talking 10 to 25% of your investment. So if you invest $1 million, you're subject to get up to $250,000 back of your investment. This is something that most cities are gearing to because we don't have the revenue that we once had from state, government to help fund these issues that we do have, or supply the funding source of revenue stream, if you will, to deal with these issues. And I think if we can look at the grand scheme of it, if we can identify some things that we can specifically attack with these dollars, then I think it'll be better used. I think it would be better for this county, be better for those who have businesses downtown, and not just downtown, but abroad. I call it the urban district, period. And that's what we got to look at. We got to get beyond the word. We got to get beyond all this other stuff, because if we don't do that, we're going to continue to be stagnant. And other cities are growing. I'm telling you, small cities like Americus, Georgia, is growing right underneath your nose because these people are being progressive. They're not allowing the little things to get in the way. We got to stop thinking like that. We got to be mindful of the bigger picture. So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to put that out there. My colleague, Commissioner Mason, mentioned that. I think several others mentioned that. We can't get caught up in the word. We can't allow others to dictate our destiny.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lockett just got a quick second. One word, and then Mr. Moore.
I just wanted to comment on what my colleague, Mayor Johnson said. It's sort of hard to look at the big picture when all you have is the frame. Maybe if information had been provided for us to study this, maybe if we had a work session or something to be concerned about all the ramifications this could have, it's a good possibility that we as commissioners could be more receptive to what we're doing. But we appear to be going into this the same as we have some other large projects. As we go along, as we move along, we're beginning to find out things. We need to know up front. And I think if we know up front, we can be very supportive of what you're trying to do. And Mr. Plunkett, I'm not throwing the arrow to you, but you said that you have been working on this some time. And I think it would have been extremely important if you would have made us aware of the fact of what this bill is and the misunderstanding that some of your people may feel when they hear it. We could have been out front on it, as opposed to being made aware of it when we look at print media. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fennoy, and then Mr. Williams, right? Yeah.
Yes, I think that if we go to the people in District 1 and the people that will be directly impacted by the designation of the area as being a slum, and we show them the picture right here, and we say that this is what your community is going to look like, I think they will willingly accept that. But I do not believe that the people that live and own property in this district believe that 5 years down the road, and I know this is the metropolitan Atlanta, but they believe that this area, their area will look anything like this on down the road. I think that at some point in time, we have got to talk to our legislative delegation about this bill and see if they can change the word slum to an opportunity district, so that when we come up with projects like this then it will be able to manipulate and move through the process. But nobody wants to live in an area that's been designated as a slum area. I look at Harlem 30, 40 years from now, and I look at Harlem now. I know what Harlem used to be like, and I know what Harlem's like now. And I would like to see that same type of transformation take place in District 1, in downtown. But I don't believe designating that area as a slum area is the answer to that. And then I guess when you look at the big picture, some see the designation as the light at the end of the tunnel, but some people see that light at the end of the tunnel as being a freight train.
Thank you, Ms. Locke. Mr. Williamson. I am so sorry, Mr. Van Noy. Family home. You could tell it's getting late.
Brady's not the only one.
I just want to make a couple of comments, and I don't know whether all of this will come from the proposal we got now, we're looking at on the screen. That looks nice. But my problem with not just this, we got a T-Splosh we just passed. We got monies that delegated to do some things, and we had not even sat down and talked about how that money is going to be spent. We got a lot of opportunity, but Augusta is not doing anything different from what we did 40 or 50 years ago to attract people to the city. Now, you can't build what I see here now. We just building this courthouse and just getting those funds. This downtown, this vibrant city where everybody looks like they're thriving, everybody making money, that looks good on the screen. But we have got to do something. And I go back to, I had mentioned, I've been back up here, and we talked about building a race back in South Augusta that would draw a lot of money to this city, and everybody fought it. Nobody wanted to talk about that. But that was money that could be made. You got to have money coming in to do what you got on the screen. The program you introducing now is not just going to do that. The money has got to be changing hands. People got to be growing. You got to have something going on. Augusta's not doing anything that I can tell you that when I was on the commission before, to this day, to draw people to Augusta. We're always talking about it, but we're not doing nothing to draw people. Downtown, I met with the downtown development, the DDA, talking to them about it. They're talking about the commission not getting along. I said, well, y'all ain't get along downtown either. Because one on this side, one on that side, one on the other, and everybody trying to tell everybody else. But what are we doing to spend money to draw people to Augusta? We got one James Brown statue. He's known all over the world. You can't even see it. You ride down Broad Street now because we don't let it overgrown. So you got to do things to attract people to your city so the downtown businesses can make money to draw people in and move forward. So I'm not worried about the name. It ain't what you call it, what you answer to. All right. So now wait on y'all. I'll wait. I'm sorry.
I thought you were done.
We all thought you were
done. All I'm saying is that I'm not opposed. We need to get the monies. But we need to do something with the money. We don't need to get the money and then say, well, we fixed the courthouse. Now, when you're giving up powers too, I got a problem when you're giving up powers. I don't know what I'm giving up. I don't want to give up nothing that I don't know I'm giving until it's been signed. We've got enough problems out here now. Donald Smith trying to take my district, give him a chance to get.
I'm going to move from West Augusta to Craigslist Drive.
Right. But my point is, we got a great opportunity. And we all don't talk about it. We don't have enough conversation to be able to move, but we need to do some things that other cities are doing. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Last comment, this is my last comment. Bob Young brought the mayor of Charlotte to Augusta. He set it all down and told us that they go out, they send 100 people a year to some city to see what's going on, and they come back to Charlotte and they implement it. We never did one thing right here. We went nowhere and they seen nothing, brought it back and said it worked. And that's what we got to do.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Does somebody like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda item.
That motion carries 3-1 with Mr. Guilfoyle voting no.